And welcome back to Retro Wrestling Games Presents. I'm your host, Alex G, and with me this evening is Luke Martin. How you doing tonight, Luke?
Doing great.
All right, fantastic. So on this episode, we're going to take a look at Wrestle War for the Mega Drive. Now, this game was released on the Mega Drive. It was not released on the Sega Genesis. It was also released in the arcade. Now, right off the bat, one of the most interesting things about this game is the cover art. Now, the cover art in the UK looks like just a regular, wrestler, right? Just nondescript, just your average, unlicensed wrestler. But in Japan, ladies and gentlemen, they legitimately took a picture of Hulk Hogan and just they slapped it right on the cover. They didn't care. Because you know what? In Japan, they say, fuck your copyright.
That he just happens to look like Hulk Hogan.
Dude, I've seen that picture of Hulk Hogan before, like on wrestling cards and shit. Like, they did not give any shits whatsoever.
Well, they also had, in the background, they had, Hawk from the Road Warriors. They had Abdullah the Butcher. They had someone that looked a lot like Bruiser Brody. Mm-hmm. Funny enough, they all are in the game.
So, they had a guy called the Mohawk Kid. They had Sledgehammer, who was based on Bruiser Brody. Mr. J, which is based on Jason from Friday the 13th. Dom Dambuster, who is based on Road Warrior Hawk. Mad Dog, or Nimrod Falcon, was a generic high-flying mass wrestler. Titan Morgan, based on Hulk Hogan. Buckskin Rogers, who's based on Stan Hansen. And Grand Kong, who is based on Abdullah the Butcher. Now, this game was released in the arcades in 1989 and for home consoles in 1991. Again, only in Japan, Australia, and Europe only. Which is kind of ironic because the same year WCW had a pay-per-view called Wrestle War as well, which is we're going to talk about that show in a little bit because I do want to bring that up. And this was also released as part of Sega's Smash Pack, which was, they had a bunch of Sega Genesis titles and what have you. I think the first one was the volume one was on the Dreamcast. So you got to play this game quite a bit if you're in the United States. I thought overall, when I look at this game, right off the bat, you think, oh man, the graphics are awesome because the sprites are big, everyone looks good. The music is good. And you're like, okay, this game is going to be really cool until you play it. And
That's true.
It's very basic, and much like a lot of wrestling games out there, if the controls are not great, it's not going to be a good game. Because if you do a button combination and expect it to be a body slam, and it's not a body slam, it's not going to be good. So this game suffers for what I consider poor controls. Again, it's an arcade game, and the home console version is a port of the arcade. So the game is hard. It's a very difficult game to play. I couldn't even get that far through it, to be completely honest, because it was difficult. But again, it's a game that is meant to eat your quarters. Another thing that stands out, right after you get your first victory, you get to pick where you want to go throughout the United States, whatever territory you want to go to fight whoever's there. And their map of the United States is ridiculous. It's like I was 6 years old and I drew a map of the United States. Like I don't know if the developers didn't know what the United States looked like. I don't know if they couldn't animate it properly for this game, but it looks fucking terrible. Like, there's no right angles in the United States. Like, there's no triangles there, and it's very pointy and kind of ridiculous. I think overall, when you play this game, again, this is an import. So again, if you want to purchase this game, you would have to buy, the Mega Drive version of this. Again, it wasn't released on the Sega Genesis. Is it worth importing if you're a hardcore wrestling collector? Yes. It's a game that you have to get because you can collect them all, right? If you're a casual wrestling fan, it's not interesting enough for you to make that purchase. Now, for me personally, I don't own a Mega Drive. Although I'm in the process of maybe getting one, hopefully, by the end of this year. So you're wondering to yourself, hey, how'd you play it? Initially, I wanted to play this on my Retron 5. Unfortunately, my Retron 5, the Genesis port for it does not work. So anytime I put a Genesis game in there, it doesn't work. They'll do Nintendo fine. They'll do Super Nintendo fine. They'll do Famicom fine. They'll do Game Boy Advance and Game Boy games fine. It's just the Sega Genesis port does not work. I don't know why. This is my second Retron 5. And I can't recommend the Retron 5 because, again, the first one completely burnt out. And this one, the Genesis port does not work. So when I try to plug in a cartridge, it just doesn't work. So for me to play this game, I went out and purchased from At Games the Sega Genesis Flashback, which is I guess one of the earlier kind of classic systems that were produced, where it has like 30 games built in already. But the coolest thing about this particular one is that it has a cartridge port, so you can play your Genesis games if you have any. Or if you want to purchase something, you can buy. You can just basically put the cartridge in and it'll play it, and it's region free. So if you got a Mega Drive game from Japan, it'll play. If you have one from Australia, it'll play. If you have one from the UK, it'll play. No problems there. And what's helpful for me, because it has an HDMI out, so I can record it properly in the I guess the best possible quality. Instead of trying to mess with AV cords with my Sega Genesis, which I have to do from time to time, and have it look like, hot garbage. So I think overall, when you look at this game, the difficulty I think is way too hard. The controls are not the best. Graphically, it looks fantastic. The music is good. Opponent select screen with the the drawing of the continental United States is hot garbage. All in all, the game wasn't fun to play. It was a chore to play. It wasn't fun. Although, to be completely honest, I wish this game was licensed. I wish like WCW had gotten a license for this. Because graphically it looked fucking great. So I'm kind of disappointed that maybe it should have got a license. Maybe this could have been the Jesse Ventura game that never got released. Although we've seen a prototype of that game and we're going to review it at some point. And it's actually just a reskin of Thunder Pro Wrestling, which is part of the Fire Pro Wrestling series. But I can't really give that one a try. But again, overall, when it comes to this game, it's probably like a 2 out of 5. It's not great by any stretch of the imagination. It doesn't play good, and like the way because the screen is so large, and it has to go up and down, like the cameras, and the camera angles have to go up and down, and that can be choppy from time to time, and that wasn't
like watching Raw.
It's actually a better watch than Raw, to be completely honest. So back to the At Games console again. It's a cheap flashback console, but I can play fucking Mega Drive games on it, so that's why I purchased it. I got that for my birthday. So, and what's cool about this as well, because I know the Sega Genesis Classic or whatever, or Sega Genesis Mini is coming out, and you can't play your own games on it. You can only play the games that are on it. And I don't think there's an SK or USB or SD port, so you can add more to it. So that's kind of cheese. The controllers for the At Games console are pieces of garbage. It's some of the worst controllers I've ever seen in my entire life. They're like cheaply made. They're poor to use, but they have controller ports. So if you have your original Sega Genesis controllers, preferably the 6-button ones, you're good to go. You just plug those right in and you're good.
They work without the 6-button. That was like the change. It changed the game with Genesis. Like having 6 buttons felt like
6
God.
buttons, and I think they had the two triggers on top because they competed at Super Nintendo, and the Super Nintendo had. They had 4, and then the 2 triggers on top. So
those triggers didn't work for them, and no games utilized them really. That I could
like Street Fighter, for sure.
But that's Street Fighter. This game was kind of like it was almost like Punch Out for wrestling.
Yeah, I can see that.
The moves look good too, so you can tell when you're doing like a suplex or pile driver, and you have like a little special move that you do. It's like go off the screen and come back down with the pile driver. But so it's not. I don't know. It's basically.
It looks good.
It looks really good, especially for the time period that it was released in. Yeah. And it looks like you can tell like what's going on. Like it all looks really good. It's just very. There's not a lot to do. Like you're punching, you're kicking, or you're doing some sort of slam. Like that's it. And then you don't really choose what you get to do really, and then you just kind of go with the flow. Hope it works, but it's like Punch Out because you start out easy and you go all your way through working to get the Sega Wrestling Association and Sega Wrestling Federation belts.
And I think one thing that stings too is that you can be Bruce Wade, and that's it.
Yeah.
Like you can't be Titan Morgan or Buckshot Rogers, which would give it a little variety and a little, would give it like a reason to go back and play the game again. It would give it replay value. But when you just have the one guy that you can be, the rookie wrestler Bruce Wade, and you beat the game, there's nothing after you beat it. There's nothing else left.
Well, I don't think there's really a lot of diversity as far as like the moves go. Like at least Punch Out, like it seemed like the guys from like,
for
but
sure.
this doesn't really have that. They're kind of, I don't know. It's basically it's a very basic game.
Yeah,
I guess
like like if you compare it to just say, all right, so we have this in the arcade, and you compare it to say Superstars or WrestleFest, like those two games blow this game out of the water. Hell, Final Bout for the fucking Neo Geo blows this game out of the water. And that game is stupid hard. We're gonna review that later on, but that game is stupid hard for no reason. It's just fucking hard. It's like,
there were only 10 people that bought Neo Geos, so there's no reason.
Did you know anyone that had a Neo Geo?
I wasn't wealthy, so no.
Me neither. Those fucking cartridges were big. Like the Neo Geo cartridges were like bigger than VHS tapes. Like they were fucking huge.
Well, Neo Geo was like super expensive. Like
it was like $1,000 and like 1992.
Well, didn't it have like you could play like some of the games with video like quality or whatever? Like,
no, they didn't have any full motion video games. Like they would have like King of Fighters. They would have like Metal Slug. Like they would have all those games, but they were like literally
Jaguar.
They were literally like perfect arcade ports. Yeah. You're essentially like you're just playing an arcade at your house because there's not any difference between the two games.
Yeah, because it wasn't Neo Geo was like SNK.
Yeah,
I think it's the Jaguar that had a lot of like.
Well, Sega CD for sure. We talked about Sega CD quite a bit. Like they had the full motion video, which killed the system. It was like, why couldn't you just give us arcade perfect, CD quality games? But no, you went with this full motion video nonsense instead, and you killed your fucking system. But that's neither here nor there.
Did you know anybody that had a Jaguar? Because I remember that was super expensive, like an Atari G.
The only kind of like oddball systems that people kind of had around here were like a TurboGrafx 16. Like I knew quite a bit of people that had a TurboGrafx. I didn't know anyone that had a Jaguar. I knew no one that had a fucking Neo Geo. I didn't know anyone that had an Apple Pippin. I still don't know anyone that had an Apple Pippin. Like
no one had one.
No, because that was Apple tried to get in the console war. Like I may have known like one or two people that may have had what's it called? Like I knew like a person or two that had a CDI. But like no one was buying those. Like if it wasn't Nintendo or Sega, like no one was buying those. Like,
there weren't enough games, and I think they kind of missed. Like the people that grew up playing arcade games in the '80s weren't going to drop $1,000 on a game system in the '90s. No. And yeah, it's not going to happen. Now maybe nowadays you get something like that, which is why they're having like the Sega and Super Nintendos come out. But you're still not paying $1,000 for one system.
You're paying like $60.
Yeah,
the cost of like a Super Nintendo Classic is like a cost of, like buying a PS4 game. Yeah.
Why would I want a game system at home that plays arcade games when I can just go to the arcade and play them?
I think people often forget about how like the arcade experience.
I like the arcade experience.
I love the arcade experience. I wish they had like more retro vintage style arcades like in my neighborhood because I would go hang out there.
I think the sad thing is that there are arcade games now, but they're all kind of stupid. Arcades are fun, but I couldn't go every day because video game. I just don't think people realize if you didn't start out like playing games in arcades or start playing like in Nintendo, how games as like a medium have evolved. Like ridiculous.
And how fucking hard they fucking used to be. Like
they were
beating Metroid. Like when you beat Metroid, you did something. You know what I mean? Like you beat Castlevania, you were the man, and you were school or in your neighborhood. Like because not a lot of kids fucking beat those games. Now like the difficulty is way less, or if it's if it's even moderately difficult, people are complaining about it on Twitter or whatever. Or there's a way to cheap out or make it super easy so you can get through a game. But shit. When you beat Castlevania, you were the man.
Like the average gamer is it's older now. Like people play like the mainline games, the shooters and stuff, but they're even Fortnite or whatever. But like play like game like even fucking like Super Mario, fucking is hard. Like, Mario is a dick. He, like, slides when he jumps. Like, and I just, like, trying, people are like, oh, my little kid's playing Nintendo. I'm like, well, that's cool. Like, why would you not give him something easier to play? Because that's hard and frustrating. Like, I remember getting frustrated. I'm like 6. It's like a difficult game to play. Like, Metroid would be impossible. So it's already hard enough, and the nuance of those games, like, they were.
I just think we had more resolve as kids.
We had anything else to do, or we go play outside.
Yeah, we could play outside, but you're sitting there for like 6 hours trying to get through fucking Metroid. You know?
I would get mad at like Sonic.
Contra was fucking hard too.
Yeah. Oh god, yeah. Well, they just like spam the fucking map with like, there's no way to dodge it, and then you have to start over. Like, God, I don't think people appreciate the fact that you can like A, save, but B, you don't. When you die, you don't like permanent die. Like, you don't have 3 lives to make it through an entire game. Yeah. Or, you know.
I mean, that's why like the game genies or some of these cheat codes became so important, because lots of people who didn't see the end of fucking Contra can finally, like, I'm just gonna put my invincibility code and I can see the fucking end, and that was dope for a lot of us that couldn't get through the game. And like, you didn't have the amount of games. Like, my son, right? He is 12. He has so many video games, it's ridiculous. I remember, like, from my Nintendo, I had like 6. Like, the same 6 games, and I would just have to memorize them and get good at them because that's all I got.
I would rent games, like rent them from like
like 2 days to get through it because you had to return them on Sunday.
Well, I mean, like, I like just thinking about like Steam. Like, my kids, like my kids can never not have games because they can get games like from Nintendo all the way up to like now, and then they can get computer games.
Right. So they can play mobile games on their phones and tablets also.
Well, yeah, but I love them, so I'm not gonna let them do that. But they have like, it's just they could literally just start today and do nothing but play video games. It would still take them a tremendous amount of time, and games now are so in depth. Like, I got my kids playing Spore, so I'm like trying to show them all the stuff that you can do in Spore, which is like easy for me as an adult, but for like a little kid, there's like so much shit you can do. Like, I just forget that, like, with me, there was like a natural progression, right? Now, like, some games are so complicated that like a little kid could never play them. They're not made for a child, like, at all. But most Nintendo games and stuff cater to them, and they were still hard as shit, which is horrible. Like, they just stole my money. I wonder how much money I would have saved if I just didn't play them at the arcade.
Yeah, not for nothing. Like, these games are so long that I still have a fucking stack of games who are still in their plastic that I still have to get through. Because Spider-Man took me fucking 2 months to beat.
Yeah.
You know, like, I can't play for 8 hours. I have a life. I have kids and shit. I can't play for 8 hours straight and get through a game in like fucking 3 days. Like I get maybe an hour and a half after everyone goes to bed. Maybe, if I'm lucky, if I'm not doing other shit.
Well, that and like they have, I mean, like, I'm a completionist. So if I play like a lengthy RPG, I'm like trying to do everything.
Yeah.
And like explore it and like get into it. So it's like you start a game like that. I can't spend a whole day just sitting here playing this game, eating ramen noodles. So I have to like work my way through it and but it's so much better. Like, at least with games now, you like kind of feel they're more like a series, like a television series, than they are like, all right, you're Mario. I don't know what you're doing, but don't die. And then you die. And that's the end of it. Or like you're Sonic and you drown. Why is there water in this goddamn game? Or the fucking Ninja Turtles game where everything is electrified and if you touch it, you die. And somehow you're a goddamn turtle, but you drown in the water. Does that make any fucking sense? No, it doesn't.
I had that game. And
I did too.
I read the instruction manual. I didn't even know what the fuck was going on. I knew these bombs were going to fucking explode.
And there's no way. Like, it's like you thought it would be one, like, the arcade game that they had was like, that's what I thought Ninja Turtles would be like. I
do want to mention before we go here, I do have a pay-per-view recommendation for you guys. So if you guys have the WWE Network and have not canceled it yet, like a lot of our friends have at this point, Go check out Wrestle War 1991. Wrestle War 1991 took place February 24th, 1991 from the Arizona Veterans Memorial Coliseum in Phoenix, Arizona. This is probably one of the best wrestling pay-per-views of 1991. I highly recommend this show. Dark match was Eddie Guerrero and Ultraman. This is Eddie Guerrero, 1991, by the way. He defeated Huchiro and Rudy Boy. You had Ricky Morton, Tommy Rich, and the Junkyard Dog, the WCW World Six-Man Champions, who defeated the Big Cat and the State Patrol of Lieutenant James O. Wright and Sergeant Buddy Lee Parker. You had Bobby Eaton, who defeated Brad Armstrong. You had Izuka Yamagata and Miyami Kimura, who defeated Miki Hanada and Miss A. Dusty Rose defeated Buddy Landell. The Young Pistols defeated the Royal Family of Jack Victory and Rip Morgan. Terry Taylor with Alexander York defeated the Z-Man. Big Van Vader versus Dan Hansen that ended in a double disqualification. Lex Luger, who defeated Dan Spivey. The Freebirds, Jimmy Jam Garvin and Michael Hayes with Big Daddy Dick and Diamond Dallas Page defeated Doom of Butch Reed and Ron Simmons. This is for the WCW World Tag Team Championship, and they were with Teddy Long. And then in the main event, 5-star match, by the way. The Four Horsemen of Barry Windham, Ric Flair, and Sid Vicious, and substituting for Arn Anderson, Larry Zbyszko defeated Brian Pillman, the Steiner Brothers, and Sting. And this is when Sid Vicious pretty much murders Brian Pillman and drops him on his head with those power bombs. So, guys, go check out Wrestle War 91. Excellent pay-per-view. Available on the WWE Network. So, but, Luke, I think when it comes to Wrestle War for the Mega Drive / arcade, again, I'm going to reiterate here, it's not a must-buy by any stretch of the imagination. If you're a hardcore wrestling video game collector, then yeah, absolutely buy it. Get the Japanese version, the one with Hulk Hogan on it. That's the one I got. So make sure you get that one because it's ridiculous. And, to be completely honest, the gameplay is not the greatest, but it is an arcade. Super hard. Again, you kind of give it a pass because it's arcade. Graphically, it looks fantastic. Music is great. But the game, the bottom line when it comes to this game, it's just not fun. And that's sad to say. All right, guys, so we are officially out of time. So for Luke Martin, I'm Alex G.